You ever hear a sentence so cold, so calculated, that it doesn't just sting, it shifts your entire perspective? That was me, Tuesday night, standing in our hallway with a grocery bag in one hand and her words still ringing in my ears. You should be grateful I even come home. She said it offhandedly. No eye contact, no raised voice. Just that cold, distracted tone, flipping through her phone like she hadn't just detonated something between us. I didn't reply. I didn't move. I just stood there, staring at her silhouette on the couch, backlit by the TV, legs tucked under, like we were still pretending to be some normal couple winding down after work. But something broke in me right then. Not my heart. That had been cracking for months. No, this was something different. This was the sound of delusion shattering. Because I realized something. She wasn't trying to hurt me. That would have implied emotion. No, this was indifference. Weaponized. And indifference, when it comes from the person who swore they loved you, is worse than hate. So I turned, walked into the kitchen, and unpacked the groceries in silence. She didn't look up. Of course she didn't. I could have screamed, thrown the eggs against the wall, flipped the table, and she still wouldn't have flinched. She thought I was safe. Predictable. A man too loyal to leave, too steady to change, too tired to fight. She had no idea who I really was. Not yet. But she was about to. Because in that exact moment, something clicked. I wasn't staying because I loved her anymore. I was staying to observe, to study, to plan. I stopped pouring her wine that night. Stopped asking how her day was. Stopped waiting for her to look at me like I mattered. And the best part? She didn't notice. Not at first. But she would. Because this wasn't going to be some dramatic exit. No suitcases by the door. No yelling. No tears. I was going to do what she feared most. Disappear without leaving the house. And when she finally realized what was happening, it'd already be too late. Because if she thought I was just another man too soft to vanish. She'd underestimated the quiet ones. She didn't notice it the next morning. She kissed the air next to my cheek like always, grabbed her gym bag, and left. No glance. No, have a good day. Just autopilot. Perfect. I let the silence settle in. Like dust on furniture you stop bothering to wipe. At work, I didn't text her. Not, did you eat? Not, how was the meeting? Nothing. That evening, she walked in, dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her heels, the usual rhythm. But something about the air was different. She couldn't name it, of course. But she felt it. The way people feel a draft and pretend it's nothing. I was already on the couch. TV on. Dinner half eaten. No place set for her. She hovered for a second. Then casually. Didn't wait for me? I shrugged. Didn't know I was supposed to. And that, right there, was the first crack. Not a fight. Not an argument. Just a shift. She didn't answer. Just walked past me, slower than usual. Upstairs, I heard the shower run. But longer than usual. Like she was thinking in there. Rehearsing something. When she came down, she was wearing that silk robe she hadn't touched in months. Hair wrapped in a towel. Wine in hand. Perfume I hadn't smelled in a year. She sat across from me. Paused the TV. You're quiet lately, she said. I nodded. Yeah. Silence. She tilted her head. Everything okay? I think it is now. I didn't smile. I didn't look away. Just said it flat. Like a truth that didn't need defending. Her eyes lingered on mine for half a second too long. She didn't push. But I saw it. That flicker of something she didn't want to name. Doubt. Unease. Awareness. She stood. Said something about email she had to answer. Went upstairs again. That night, I didn't join her in bed until late. She was on her side, facing the wall. I climbed in, didn't say a word, didn't touch her. The space between us felt like a canyon. And she felt it. The next day, she texted me around noon. Hey, thinking of you. Hope your day's going okay. I stared at the screen for a while. Typed. Deleted. Typed again. Then sent. All good. Thanks. That was it. A knife made of ice, sliding beneath her skin. That night, she cooked. Real food. Not her usual takeout or half-hearted pasta. She lit candles. Put on music. Tried to resurrect a version of us that had died months ago. I sat. I ate. Said, thank you. Didn't compliment anything. Didn't pretend to be impressed. And when she laughed at something on her phone, a laugh too loud, too forced, I didn't ask. Didn't play into it. Because I wasn't playing anymore. I was documenting the downfall of a queen who thought she ruled me by neglect. And the crown? Was already slipping. It happened on a Wednesday. Something small. Almost forgettable if I hadn't been watching. She was getting ready for work. Lipstick, blazer, heels. Too much effort for a casual Wednesday meeting. But it wasn't the outfit that caught me. It was the smile. Not the one she gave me. The one she gave her phone. She glanced down, screen glowing in her hand, and for a split second, her lips curved in a way they hadn't around me in months. Not polite. Not forced. Warm. Giddy. Alive. Then it vanished. She looked up and saw me watching. Her whole face shifted, just one beat too slow. "What?" she said, laughing, trying to play casual. "You look like you saw a ghost." I shook my head. Just once. Didn't answer. She walked past me, perfume trailing behind her like a ghost of better days. The door clicked shut, and I stood there in the kitchen, coffee going cold, heart not racing, but narrowing. Because here's the thing. I wasn't jealous. I was calculating. I didn't need proof. I didn't need to know his name. I didn't need screenshots or hotel bills or just a friend from work. I already knew. That smile wasn't for me. And once you see that kind of smile, the kind they can't fake, the kind they don't know they're wearing, you can't unsee it. That night, I didn't wait for her to get home. I was already in bed, lights off. She came in late. Too late. Claimed her meeting ran over. Her phone died. Traffic. All the classics. I didn't ask. Didn't turn over. She stood in the doorway longer than she needed to. I could feel her trying to gauge if I'd taken the bait. I hadn't. Because I wasn't fishing. I was building the exit. Silently. Precisely. The next day, I started with the obvious. Checked our phone bill. Just out of curiosity. The same number. Repeating. Mostly evenings. Mostly after I went to bed. Next, I looked through our shared calendar. Her meetings. Her networking events. Her wellness sessions. All vague. All too clean. She'd never been sloppy, not outright. But people like her always underestimate one thing. A man who's done doesn't dig for drama. He digs for clarity. She came home that night humming. Humming. Like nothing was unraveling around her. She kissed my cheek. I let her. Not because I believed her. Because I needed her to believe I still did. Because when someone thinks they're ahead, they get lazy. They make mistakes. And I wasn't going to stop her. Not yet. Let her text him. Let her smile at her phone when she thinks I'm not looking. Let her think this game is hers. What she didn't realize. She was playing with a man who'd stopped playing weeks ago. And I was already 3 moves ahead. I didn't plan to check her phone. I wasn't that guy. At least, I didn't used to be. But when the ground beneath you starts cracking, you don't wait for the earthquake to swallow you whole. You brace. You test the walls. And sometimes, you go looking. She left it on the nightstand. Face down. Charging. I waited until her breathing slowed beside me. That soft, steady rhythm that says, asleep, or pretending well enough. I reached for it. Not in a rush. Not with panic. Just precision. Screen lit up. No passcode. She still thought I was the same man who trusted her without question. I scrolled past the obvious. No red flags in the messages, of course. She wasn't an amateur. But I knew where to look. Photos. Deleted folder. A few harmless selfies. Then one. Her. In a mirror. Wearing a dress I hadn't seen in a year, the one she claimed didn't fit anymore. Makeup done. Lipstick fresh. Smile sharp. Taken at 10:42 p.m. The same night she told me she'd fallen asleep on the couch watching reality TV. Then I found the album. Hidden. Renamed. Receipts. Inside? Screenshots of her own messages. Not to me. To someone listed only as M, no photo. Just an initial. Can't wait to see you again. I miss feeling wanted. He doesn't notice anything. It's like living with furniture. I love how free I feel with you. That one? That one burned. Not because it was romantic. Because it was strategic. She wasn't hiding. She was documenting her version of the story. Her future alibi. Her narrative for when everything fell apart and she needed someone to blame. He was cold. He was checked out. We drifted. He didn't make me feel alive. She was rehearsing her victimhood. Preloading the script. I put the phone down. Quietly. Carefully. I didn't confront her. Didn't wake her up. Didn't say a word. Because what she didn't know. I had already started my own documentation. Not for revenge. Not for proof. For exit. The next day, I created a folder. Named it Departure. Inside, I saved nothing dramatic. Just details. Dates. Locations. Screenshots. Bank statements. Flight confirmations for a solo trip she claimed was with the girls. A photo of a man's jacket in the corner of her Instagram story. Not tagged. Not acknowledged. But there. I didn't need her to confess. I just needed her to keep underestimating me. Because when she thought I was broken, quiet, blind, that's when I became dangerous. And the best part? She still thought the pieces were in her hands. She didn't realize I was already gone. She thought I didn't know. That was her first mistake. Her second? Believing silence meant safety. What she didn't realize is that a man doesn't go quiet because he's clueless. He goes quiet because he's calculating. That week, I started making changes. Small ones. Invisible at first. I opened a private account. Different bank. Different email. No shared access. I rerouted a portion of my paycheck. Nothing drastic. Just enough to go unnoticed unless she was watching. She wasn't. She was too busy smiling at her phone and putting on lipstick for brunch. I removed her fingerprint from my phone. Deleted her access to our calendar. Started paying bills manually instead of through our joint autopay. One by one, the systems we'd built together started shifting, and she never felt the ground moving under her. That Friday, she tried again. Dinner at home. Candles lit. Music low. Her in that deep green dress I used to say made her look like temptation itself. I walked in. Paused in the doorway. She looked up. Bright-eyed. Hopeful. Or maybe just testing the bait. Thought we could have a night, she said. I nodded. Go ahead. Enjoy it. I walked past her, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and went to the office. Closed the door. Didn't slam it. She didn't follow. Didn't ask. But I heard the pause in her breathing. That hiccup of realization. This wasn't a punishment. This was a phase shift. I wasn't playing distant. I was becoming unavailable. Saturday morning, I left early. No explanation. I used to leave notes. Or text. Or send a picture from wherever I went. Not anymore. Now, she had to guess. When I got back that afternoon, she asked where I'd been. Out, I said. With who? Just people. Her lips tightened. She wanted names. Clarity. A hook. I gave her none. Let her imagination do the damage. That night, I canceled Netflix. She asked if I forgot the password. No, I said. That was it. Not a glitch. A signal. The things she used to take for granted, access, inclusion, priority, were evaporating. One click at a time. I didn't do it out of spite. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was simply returning her energy. Precisely. Quietly. Surgically. She started noticing. The toothbrush I kept in our bathroom? Gone. My gym bag? Packed and stored in my trunk. The framed photo of us from Santorini? Replaced with a city skyline. She didn't say anything, but I caught her staring at the shelf for almost a full minute, trying to figure out what was missing. That was the beauty of it. She couldn't name what was slipping away, but she felt it. Like walking into a familiar room and realizing the temperature had dropped and the windows were all still closed. She started texting more. Thinking about you. Want to do something just us? I miss how we used to be. I answered. Politely. Flatly. Cool. Maybe. Busy. She tried compliments. You've been working out? You smell good today. I love that jacket on you. I nodded. Thanks. But I didn't glow under her gaze anymore. Because she'd taught me that praise was currency, and I'd stopped needing her economy. And that's when it hit her. Not all at once. But slowly. Devastatingly. The man she used to ignore was now the man she couldn't reach. And the worst part? I was still there. Right across the room. Quiet. Controlled. Gone. The silence wasn't working for her anymore. So she changed tactics. It started subtly. New perfume for a quick grocery run. Tighter jeans. A sudden mention of a name I'd never heard before, dropped casually over dinner. Ryan said the funniest thing at work today. I didn't ask who Ryan was. Didn't flinch. Didn't even look up from my plate. She waited for a reaction. A twitch. A question. A spark of jealousy. All she got was silence, and the soft clink of my fork against ceramic. That was her first failed test. The next came 2 days later. She laughed, loud, exaggerated, at a message she refused to show me. Kept glancing at her phone, then at me. Like baiting a bear with an open trap. I didn't ask. She shifted in her seat, restless. Like an actor in a play where the audience had stopped clapping. Then came the outfit. Black silk. Heels in the house. Lipstick at 10:30 p.m. on a weekday. She stepped into the living room and said, I'm going out for a drink. Don't wait up. I nodded once. Have fun. Her smile faltered. Just a little. But I saw it. She thought she could provoke something. rage, insecurity, possessiveness. But I wasn't playing that game. Not anymore. Because the moment you stop needing someone, you also stop fearing their absence. That night, I didn't text to check in. Didn't wonder where she was. Didn't ask when she got home. I was asleep. Deep, peaceful sleep, the kind she used to deny me with her distance. The next morning, she made coffee. For both of us. Set it on the table like a peace offering. I took it. Drank it. Didn't say thank you. She stared for a few seconds. Then finally spoke. You're different. I looked up. Yeah. What happened? I held her gaze. You happened. She didn't reply. Didn't argue. Just stood there, unsure whether to sit or walk away. That day, she didn't text me once. She was waiting to see if I would miss her silence. I didn't. Because she was confusing silence with presence. Mine had weight. Hers was just noise turned off. By Thursday, she tried softness. Old playlist playing when I got home. The one we used to dance to on Sunday mornings, back when she still touched me without thinking. The smell of my favorite dinner in the air. I walked in. She smiled. Said, I made your favorite. I sat. Ate. Good, I said. That was all. No smile. No eye contact. Just acknowledgement. She sat across from me like a stranger trying to learn a language she used to speak fluently and now couldn't remember the verbs for. I cleared my plate, rinsed it, walked out of the room. Didn't slam a door. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't give her a single emotional foothold. Because when someone's used to feeding off your reactions and you stop offering any, they starve. She was starving. And I had never felt more full. She broke the pattern on a Sunday. Not with lipstick. Not with silence. But with a sentence I never expected to hear from her lips. I was wrong. We were sitting on the couch. Not close. Not touching. A show was playing in the background, something neither of us cared about. She muted the TV. Turned to face me. I was wrong, she said again. Softer this time. About how I treated you. I didn't move. Didn't nod. Didn't jump at the sound of what once would have been everything I'd wanted to hear. She looked down. Picked at the sleeve of her sweatshirt like a child caught lying. I thought if I pulled back, you'd try harder. That it would make you see me more. But all it did was push you away. Now she looked at me. Waiting. Expecting, maybe, some emotional unraveling. A sigh. A confession. A hand reaching for hers. But I just sat there. Still. Because here's the thing. It wasn't an apology. It was a move. A calculated last-ditch effort to re-establish relevance. Not love. Leverage. I didn't know how far things had gone, she whispered. They're gone, I said. 2 words. No venom. No echo. Just finality. She blinked. That pause again, the one where she tried to hold herself together without showing the crack. You don't love me anymore? She asked. I looked her dead in the eyes. I did. Every version of you that wasn't performing. She pulled in a breath like she'd been punched. That was the real confession, hers and mine. She had spent months weaponizing distance. Turning affection into currency. Expecting me to beg. Expecting me to chase. And now? Now she was chasing someone who no longer existed in her field of vision. That night, she cried in the bathroom. Not loud. Not performative. Just soft, muffled sobs through the thin wall, the kind you can't fake. But I didn't go to her. Didn't knock. Didn't even pause the music I was playing through my headphones. Because something had shifted again, and this time, in me. I didn't hate her. Didn't even resent her. I just didn't know her comfort anymore. That was the scariest part for her. Not that I was angry. Not that I might leave. But that I could stay. And still not belong to her. She came to bed late. Laid close. Not touching, but close. Enough to remind me of the past. I didn't move. She whispered, I miss us. I whispered back, you missed us when you still had it. She turned to the wall. And I turned off the lamp. Because some goodbyes don't happen at the airport. They happen in the same bed, under the same blanket, breathing the same air. But already living in different worlds. She thought we were rebuilding. That's what made it so effective. The soft apologies. The shared dinners. The morning coffees she'd started making again. She thought they meant something. They didn't. They were noise. And I'd already started moving in silence. That Monday, I signed a lease. Not far. Just far enough. Small place. Clean. Quiet. No shared walls. No shared anything. Just mine. That evening, I picked up a few essentials. Towels, bedding, plates. Not much. Because I didn't need much anymore. I wasn't furnishing a new life. I was unlearning the old one. The next few days, I packed slowly. Not boxes. Not bags. Folders. Flash drives. Bank transfers. Medical records. Car title. Insurance logins. Piece by piece, I reclaimed everything with my name on it. Everything she once had access to. Everything she believed she'd always control by default. She didn't ask questions. Maybe because she didn't want to know the answers. She thought the shift in me was softening. Forgiveness. Healing. But I wasn't softening. I was erasing. On Thursday, I removed myself from our shared Spotify. Canceled my profile on our Netflix. Left the Hulu login blank. She texted, "Hey, did something happen to our accounts?" I replied, "Just simplifying things. No lie. No drama. Just truth, written in fine print." She bought wine that night. Poured 2 glasses. Sat next to me on the couch, legs tucked beneath her like she used to do when we were still real. "I feel like we're getting better," she said. I took a sip. Nodded once. Didn't confirm. Didn't correct. Because letting someone believe the storm is over, while you're already walking out from under the clouds, that's how peace is reclaimed. Friday, I started the transfer of my name off the lease. The landlord didn't ask much. I had the paperwork ready. He didn't even blink. Why would he? To him, I was just another man adjusting his life. He had no idea how long I'd been planning this exit. How many nights I'd laid beside her, staring at the ceiling, mapping the blueprint in my head. She cooked again that night. Played our old playlist. Even wore that faded concert tee she used to steal from my drawer. I smiled. Not because I felt something. Because I didn't. And for the first time in years, I realized. That's what freedom feels like. The absence of weight. Not running. Not escaping. Just no longer carrying what was never mine to hold alone. We watched a movie. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I let her. Not out of affection, but out of mercy. Because she didn't know this was the last weekend I'd ever spend in that house. The last night I'd sleep in that bed. The last morning I'd pour coffee into a cup she bought. And she wouldn't know it, not until I was already gone. Because closure? That was never the goal. Peace was. And sometimes, peace sounds a lot like keys hitting the table for the last time. I woke up before sunrise. How still dark. Her side of the bed warm, body curled under the covers, breathing slow, unaware. I sat on the edge for a while. Just breathing. Not remembering. Not regretting. Just confirming in silence that I owed her nothing more. No note. No speech. No ceremony. Everything I had to say had already been said, not through words, but through weeks of absence, detachment, precision. My duffel was by the door. Not packed with drama. Just the essentials. Everything I needed to start a life that didn't orbit someone else's mood. The keys were in my hand. I walked to the kitchen. Poured the last of the coffee grounds into the machine. Let it brew while the house stayed still. She used to hum in the mornings. Used to walk barefoot, wrapped in a robe, acting like this kitchen was her stage, and I was the backdrop. Now it was just me. And that silence? That silence felt like mine for the first time. I drank my coffee slowly. Looked at the room. One last scan. No photos to take. No goodbye hugs. No final look over the shoulder. She didn't stir upstairs. Didn't know her world was already -1 heartbeat. And I wasn't going to wake her to say it. What would I even say? Thanks for withholding love? Thanks for teaching me how to vanish while staying present? No. Some exits don't need monologues. Some exits are the closure. I left my house key on the table. Next to the remote she always lost. Next to the empty mug she never once rinsed. Next to the life she thought I'd never leave because I was too steady. I walked out. No slamming door. Just the sound of morning air swallowing the last piece of who I used to be in that place. By the time she'd wake, the bed would still be warm. Maybe for a few more minutes, she'd think I was just downstairs. Maybe she'd smile, thinking we'd turned a corner. Maybe she'd pour 2 cups of coffee, but one would go cold. Because she'd realize. He's not just in another room. He's gone. And this time, he's not coming back. 3 days passed before she called. I didn't answer. She texted that night. Are you okay? Then again, 2 hours later. Can we talk? I let both sit unread. Not because I was angry. Because I was done. She called again the next morning. Left a voicemail. Tears in her voice. That cracked breath she used to use when she wanted sympathy without saying what she'd done. I don't know what happened. I thought we were better. Please, just call me. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying for the version of me that made her feel untouchable. The one who checked in. Showed up. Stayed. But that man? She buried him in years of small withdrawals, cold shoulders, silent punishments, conditional love, and the grave was shallow. By the fifth day, her messages changed tone. You could have at least said something. You owed me that. You're being a coward. But she was wrong. Cowardice is staying where you're slowly erased. Leaving? Leaving is mercy for both of you. I didn't post anything online. Didn't change my status. Didn't announce my freedom. Because true peace doesn't need witnesses. It just needs distance. I slept like I hadn't in years. I started eating like food tasted again. Breathing like air didn't carry weight. No one asked where she was. No one brought her up. Because the version of our love she'd sold to the world, polished, performative, perfect, was never real enough to mourn. She tried reaching out to a friend of mine. He told her I was fine, but not available. That was the truth. I wasn't avoiding her. I had simply moved on. Not to another woman. Not to some new thrill. To myself. I started going places I used to avoid, restaurants we once shared, streets that held echoes. And nothing inside me pulled back. There was no sting. Just space. And quiet. And peace. Months passed. One day, I ran into someone who knew us. They asked how she was. I smiled politely. Said I didn't know. Didn't add anything. Didn't ask about her in return. Because she lived in a past version of me, one I'd shed like old skin. She could scroll through photos, revisit texts, reread old, I love you, but none of it would bring me back. Because I didn't leave to teach her a lesson. I left because the lesson was for me. And I finally learned it. If love is something you have to earn, then it was never love to begin with. And once I stopped trying to prove my worth to someone who measured me only by my silence, I found freedom in the quiet. I didn't light a match. I didn't burn the bridge. I just walked away and never looked back.